So, although lately we've been talking a lot about potential miscommunications and confusing messages from Nintendo when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, and of course, $80 games, I'm still looking forward to the system. I'll still be getting one on day one. I'm going to try to get one early from a scalper, probably, and I'll probably mess around and end up with like three or four of them, plus a whole variety of different games, because you guys are going to be interested to see how the games look and how the games perform. Now, the first party games that we've seen from Nintendo all look really great, as you would expect. Nintendo is always masters at getting the most out of their hardware. Third party games, though, can be a bit of a different situation. You saw some success stories on the Switch and some games that, well, WWE 2K18. So looking at third-party games and what developers are able to do in terms of third-party games, especially when there is a comparison on something like the PlayStation 5, is always very interesting to me. Now, there are two videos we're going to be taking a look at today that kind of dive into the graphics of the Nintendo Switch 2 versus something like the PlayStation 5. Now, these videos I will have linked in the description box down below. You can also take a look at it from the perspective of PlayStation 4 visuals, but I mean, it's better to just look at the PlayStation 5 to really get the sort of comparison, because nobody's out there really buying a PlayStation 4. So the first game we're going to take a look at is Cyberpunk 2077, which was a bit of a surprise announcement. Like I said, I have links to these videos in the description box down below. I'm taking no sort of credit for making these videos. I don't even really know how to make these videos, so shout outs to them. But as you can see here from this still image, I think it looks pretty good on the Switch too. Very comparable is kind of the word I would use. So let's take a look at some of the game in motion here. You could see that things like effects as far as lighting is concerned, some shadows, some how the reflective material is on the clothing of our friend Keanu Reeves here. I think the PlayStation 5 version does look a little bit better, but that gap is definitely, that Nintendo Switch 1 gap is definitely shrinking very, very quickly. And one thing to remember with the Nintendo Switch 2 build that we are seeing is this is a 7-week-old build. Honestly, the little googly eyes actually look a bit better on the Switch 2. The lady's hair does look a bit different on the Switch 2 as well, but I do think the beard looks a bit more natural on the PlayStation 5 Pro version of the game comparative to the Nintendo Switch version. But just looking at these two games in motion side by side, obviously one major difference is the frame rate of the PlayStation 5 version comparative to the Switch 2 version. As it stands right now, the frame rate for the Nintendo Switch 2 version in performance mode is 40 frames per second. In graphics mode is 30 frames per second. Now, we don't have a whole bunch of footage here to kind of compare everything. He goes into some screenshots here as well. But like I said, we have had Gene Park get hands-on with the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Cyberpunk 2077, and he said it ran better than the Steam Deck version in his opinion, and he has put a lot of time into the Steam Deck version. So if you want to check out this full video and, all of the different sort of comparisons, I kind of like these shots too. Let's look at this real quick. You can kind of see there is a difference. But is it really that big of a difference? It's kind of going to come down, I think, more so to frame rate of things, as far as really being able to notice things. If this is your first time playing Cyberpunk, I just hope that this edition is a well optimized edition in terms of bugs and stuff like that. I got glitched out of being able to progress in Cyberpunk on my Xbox, but I'm going to pick this up on day one because I am interested in checking it out. Like I said at the start, there is a full link in the description box down below, so make sure you check out this full video and show the original creator some love. All right, the next game we're going to take a look at is Street Fighter 6 between the PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch 2 edition of the game. Now, you got to remember, this is a handheld version of Street Fighter 6. It does have the first 2 years of content included in it as well. And looking at this, the Switch image is definitely sharper. Look at the PS4 version. The colors are way better on the Switch version. They pop a lot more. It's a lot clearer. And then the PS5 version is even clearer than that. But if these weren't side by side, like how big of a difference would it actually be? They showed Street Fighter 6 during the Treehouse presentation, and I was actually pretty impressed with what I saw from it. I'm not expecting, PS5 or PS5 Pro levels of visuals out of the Switch 2 because I mean at the end of the day it is a handheld system, but I think this Switch 2 version looks really really good. Now this is a super fun game to begin with. I played a ton of it on the Xbox Series X, so I am very familiar with it. I don't know that we've gotten any sort of specifications on frame rate. I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that it's going to be 60 frames per second. I mean, it actually looks smoother than the PS4 version does, as you could see here in this image. So, and it definitely looks more in line frame rate wise than the PS5 version. Now, what's interesting about the Switch 2 version is some of this will be being using the DLSS that we have seen and now has been confirmed for the Nintendo Switch 2 in order to sort of upscale things on a level from the hardware to the software. Now, we're seeing some PS4 footage here. We're going to go ahead and skip this. I want to see the Switch 2 version. Like, this looks very good. You could see some, like, artifacting in the background that's maybe not as prevalent in the other versions, but your eyes are really going to be focused more so on the foreground of this, the combatants fighting Chun-Li and Ryu here. And I'm actually very very impressed with this. Like, I'm actually really looking forward to picking up this version of the game. I never got any of the subsequent DLC or anything like that. I just got the vanilla version of the game when it originally came out. Of course, it has that weird sort of mode where you are, essentially like running around and having to like do like an adventure style game. Let's see if we can get some better side-by-side comparisons here of gameplay of the Switch 2 version versus the PS5. It doesn't really seem like we have too much of that, but I mean, we do get these shots here that kind of showcase what to expect. And I think from a graphical perspective and more importantly, a performance perspective, this is very impressive. I don't think we're going to have these major problems with third-party games that we had. Okay, here's a good look. So that was, oh man, come on. Why didn't you actually like play the fight, bro? Let's pause. Let's see if we can pause it here. So like you could see like the PS5, it looks a little bit cleaner. Like the facial hair once again looks a little bit more realistic on the PlayStation 5. The sweat on the brow, there's not really any sweat on Zangief's brow here. But once again, these are very smaller details of things that you probably aren't really going to notice when you are actually in the game and playing the game. I think the backgrounds look very comparable as well. Obviously a little bit more detail on this tower back here compared to the tower over here. But I think this is a great looking version of Street Fighter 2. I mean, arguably, but definitely better than the PlayStation 4 version. And I think it holds its own against the PlayStation 5 version. And when you take into account that you'll be able to play this game on the go, I think it says a lot about what the Switch 2 is capable of. So kind of just a little fun video today comparing graphics of PlayStation 5 third-party games with Nintendo Switch 2 versions of them. And I think as the system goes along and more third-party games get announced, I think you're going to see more impressive things come along from it. Now, of course, pricing is going to be a big thing with these games as to whether or not you want to buy them. If you only play Nintendo products, you've never played Street Fighter 6, you've never played Cyberpunk. But if you have other platforms, you could pick them up usually for a little bit cheaper. Now, we do know that Street Fighter 6 is going to be $60 if you get a physical edition, and it doesn't even have, it's just the little digital game card that comes inside that you have to download onto your system, whereas Cyberpunk is going to be $70 and of course is on the full cartridge that is a 64 gigabyte cartridge. But I was pretty impressed with this stuff, and I thought it would be fun to kind of look at, kind of compare and contrast both of these games that we've gotten more footage of versus than some of the other third-party games. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below about this sort of comparison. Like I said, I have links to both of these videos in the description box, so make sure you go show the original creators some love, and you could kind of see some more stuff because obviously I didn't show you the full video. And give me your thoughts, give me your thoughts, your concerns potentially, or do you think that the Switch 2 will be able to handle itself a little bit better than the Switch 1 did in terms of third-party games? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the notification bell as well so you're not missing out on any video uploads. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.